Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with box number 2 of Australian Eloquences, or Decca Eloquence, whatever you want to call it, Schmidt-Isserstedt edition. Now, volume 1 was the one to get. I mean, the really important one, because it had his Beethoven cycle, which is the best thing he ever did and one of the great Beethoven cycles out there. It's just marvelous with the Vienna Philharmonic. And we talked about that, and you all talked about it, and you all rushed out and bought it. It was wonderful. But some of you wanted to know what's going with the second volume. So we're going to go through it here. It has how many discs? 15 discs, some of which are really nice and interesting, and some of which are like, Schmidt-Isserstedt was a Kapellmeister in the truest sense of the term, a solid musical technician who could, like when he did the Beethoven, knew he had the Vienna Philharmonic, and he galvanized himself to just let it rip, as to the extent that ripping was what sort of German Kapellmeisterish conductors did, at least in Beethoven. The rest of his career was he blew hot and cold. He spent most of his life in Hamburg with the NDR Symphony Orchestra. He did wonderful programs there, I have to say, because I worked in the NDR archive for a while, and there are radio tapes of just really fabulous contemporary repertoire and all kinds of stuff we're never going to hear, and some very good performances. However, there's also the stuff that he had the opportunity to record commercially was not always his most congenial repertoire. But he did it. He was a pro, and that's what you get here. You get professional work. Now, these are billed as the recordings on Phillips, Mercury, Accord, and Deutsche Grammophon, and there's a couple other labels in there, too, that are all part of the universal, mega clump there. And it's not complete, this set. And for example, his dreadful Dvořák 7th is in this, the John Culshaw producer box. And I think it was released on Eloquence, Decca Eloquence, like as a single. I don't know. There's some mono stuff and whatnot, so it's not complete, but it's mostly what you want. And it's enough of this guy. I mean, frankly, 2 boxes of a semi-well-known German conductor. I know that sounds terrible. We want to say everyone's great, everyone's fabulous, everyone's wonderful, but they're not. And we have to be choosy, picky. Well, I do. That's what critics do. You can get whatever you want, but we have to be honest about it. And his Beethoven cycle is the best of him. And if you have that, you've got Schmidt-Isserstedt's absolute testament. And the rest of it is for us psychotic collectors. So as a concerto accompanist, he was marvelous. He did quite a bit of work. His son, Eric Smith, he got rid of Schmidt-Isserstedt, the last name, and Isserstedt was added because Schmidt was too commonplace, and he needed a longer name for a career. The guy did. But Eric Smith, the producer, worked for Phillips for most of his career, and Decca sometimes too. And so, he had to choose an opportunity to work with his dad. And maybe that's why we got some of these things in London, but I'm just speculating. I have no idea. So we have Beethoven's Violin Concerto with Henrik Schering and the London Symphony Orchestra, a beautiful performance of the Beethoven Violin Concerto, originally issued, as you can see here, by this little hoogie-googie on Phillips. So that's nice. I mean, that's worth having. And then also on Phillips, Alfred Brendel doing the Brahms First Piano Concerto with the Concertgebouw, something that, Brendel fans will always want. I mean, it's a nice performance. I'm not an overwhelming fan, but, of Brendel and this music. But, that's me, and others swear by him, so I'm not going to make an issue of it. Then we have, this is interesting. This is from the days when, even these big international labels were not so international. They were kind of local. So here on Phillips, we have it says, first time complete, first time in stereo of a major Mozart opera. Now, the major Mozart opera in question is La Finta Giardiniera, the fake Lady Gardener, which is what that translates as. But here it's done auf Deutsch, in German, as Die Gärtnerin aus Liebe, the gardener from love. Ugh. Anyway, it's just the dumbest opera in the world, full of wonderful music. It's early Mozart. It's his first great opera buffa. I have like a dozen zillion recordings of it. I mean, sitting around here. Oh, look. I mean, I just sort of reach out my hand and out pops La Finta Giardiniera. So, that's a Giardiniera is more than a pickled vegetable salad. It's actually better when it's a pickled vegetable salad. But what a cast. Oh my God, what a cast this has singing auf Deutsch. You've got Ileana Kortrubash, Helen Donat, Jesse Norman, Tatiana Troyanos, Werner Holweg, Gerhard Unger, and Hermann Pry. I mean, who cares what language they're singing in? It makes no difference at all. It's lovely. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, my gosh. And they're all a young, fresh voice because they were all working in Germany back then, in the provincial German opera houses at the start of their careers. I mean, holy mackerel, this is 1972. Wow. Yeah. Thank God for provincial opera houses doing provincial things provincially. Yeah, so that's wonderful for, opera buffs and geeky collectors like myself. Then we've got Mozart Symphonies 41 and 39 with the London Symphony Orchestra, and they're perfectly decent, ordinary performances. Mercury. Remember this Mercury disc? It's Schubert's 6th Symphony with the London Symphony and Schubert's 4th, the Tragic, with Walter Susskind conducting too. So that's fun for Walter Susskind fans, actually. I mean, they're decent performances. It's not music that, people are going to, shake the earth with. They're not, that it's not that kind of music, but they're very sensible, lovely performances. Then we have the Brahms 21 Hungarian Dances, What's Not to Love, with the NDR Symphony Orchestra, perfectly charming. Was that an accord? Yes, that was on accord, believe it or not. And then, oh my God, a perfectly ordinary, totally unmemorable parody of what this piece ought to be. It's Scheherazade goes to Germany and has a beer and a pretzel or something. I don't know. This is just terrible. The slow movement is so boring. I mean, the finale is so boring. Ironically, you do get like a lot of like cymbals and tam-tam at the shipwreck, which is otherwise boring. And there's nothing worse than somebody who gets, these splashy percussion parts right while everything else is just, deadly. So it's just awful, 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 awful. Then he did a couple Berwald symphonies as part of this volume 1 of Berwald, the L'œuvre de Franz Berwald, on this. I can't even read what this label was. Cygnus. Cycnus, which is kind of Decca. It's with the Stockholm Radio Symphony Orchestra, but all this stuff is in French. So, and it was on a chord. So it's a chord. And it's a chord and the Cygnus. I have no idea what this was. But they're nice performances of 2 Berwald symphonies. So I'm not complaining. You didn't get that many Berwald symphonies back in the day. And this is the kind of thing that Schmidt-Isserstedt was just one of those good all-around musical conductors who could take anything and play it nicely, and he does. Mozart. Oh, this is in the Schneiderhan box, of course. Violin Concertos 4 and 5 with Wolfgang Schneiderhan and the NDR Symphony Orchestra. Oh, these are nice, and the Berlin Philharmonic in Symphony No. 4. So they're lovely performances for Schneiderhan fans. And then we've got, look at this, Wolfgang Fortner. Wolfgang Fortner CDs. We get his The Creation with Fischer-Dieskau baritone, and his Movements for Piano and Orchestra with Carl Siemann, which is in the Carl Siemann box, of course. Everyone has their Carl Siemann box. And the Ravel G Major Concerto with Monique Haas, which is in the Monique Haas box for all you Monique Haasians. I mean, that's these are sort of what happened again, when things were more local. But it's good to have the Fortner stuff. And this was a well-known disc in its day, and it's lovely. The Dvořák Serenades for Strings and Winds with the NDR Symphony. It was on Deutsche Grammophon. These are lively, fresh, really, really nice performances. They're beautifully played. The Serenade is the Wind Serenade is particularly perky. It's really kind of nice, and so that's fun. That's good to have. And then we have also auf Deutsch, La Traviata, auf Deutsch with Maria Stoddard, Ernst Hayfliger, Lawrence Winters, and anyone else we know here? No, not really. I mean, all you Ursula Zollenkopf fans. I mean, your ship has come home. Wow, baby! And let's not forget Dorothea Förster-Georgi. So yeah, if you want like a disc of Traviata excerpts in German, baby, go for it. And finally, there is a historical concert, which is ironic because you have a DG historical one, but you don't have his Decca historical stuff, like that dreadful Dvořák Seventh. I know, why do I want the dreadful Dvořák Seventh? Well, for completeness sake. And there's probably other stuff in mono floating around somewhere. But we've got, let's see, the Prague Symphony and a couple Mozart arias from Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni with Laura Hoffmann, soprano, and the Tchaikovsky String Serenade again, which in a slower, less interesting performance than the stereo one on Deutsche Grammophon, so with the same orchestra, so who cares? And Heinrich Suttermeister, Romeo and Juliet excerpts with Crystal Goltz. Oh wow, she was a fiendish dramatic soprano, and Julius Catona. I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, that's stuff you'll never hear again, probably, and won't want to. But that's volume 2 of the Schmidt-Isserstedt box. And, most of it's pretty good. And, I mean, some of it's really interesting. There are some splendid performances in here. I mean, that Mozart, oh boy, Mozart opera in German with Troyanos and Norman and Hermann Pry. And it's really amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, I mean, I'm glad Australian Eloquence put this out for us heavy-duty collectors. If you're not a heavy-duty collector, then you don't need to worry at all, period. But otherwise, yeah, give it a shot. If it floats your boat, go for it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.